You told us last week about a big Notre Dame football recruiting weekend. Any takeaways from the activity?
Darren, I mean, it was close to 20 prospects on campus. It's a good group. You had, it was mainly class of 2024 prospects. All 7 commits were in town. A 2025 prospect and Dorian Brew from Ohio, a player who actually on Wednesday night, crazy enough as it seems, since he's only a sophomore, I did log a prediction for him to land at Notre Dame. So yeah, it was a good weekend overall, Darren. No commitments to come out of it, at least as of now. But I really do think that it's a weekend that's going to pay future dividends. I think it was last year for this same recruiting weekend, you had 3 players. It was Preston Zinter, Sullivan Absher, and one more. The name is escaping me. In the 2023 class, who visited that weekend and ended up committing to the Irish. So I foresee similar things for the Irish. It definitely seemed to go really well. A lot of people like to ask Darren, like, what happens on a recruiting weekend like this for a junior day? Meetings, video presentations, campus tours, video/photo shoot, and you go watch the hockey game. That's kind of the gist for one of these campus, junior days at Notre Dame. And again, the players had a really good time on campus, and I do think it'll pay off for the Irish down the road.
Hey, we know Marcus Freeman is nonstop recruiting. What is his role in the month of January?
So from this past Friday to the end of the month, Notre Dame coaching staff is out on the road. So checking in at high schools of these top 2024 and even 2025, inquiring about those players, inquiring about 2026 prospects even. So that's more of the assistant staff. But for Freeman, he's checking in at high schools of Notre Dame's top targets and commits in the 24 cycle all month. So as we always talk about, this is the bump rule. I like to make it clear because, we all write these articles about, Notre Dame coaches on the road. It's like, what does that mean? So Marcus Freeman's in on Wednesday, at least, he was in the Northeast, right? At a school in New Jersey, stopping in at a school in Connecticut. Like, what is he doing? It's the most he could do with the actual prospect is bump into the player, and I'm doing that in air quotes for radio audience. What exactly that means, what that NCAA word there for bump rule, like it's up to your interpretation, I guess. So at most, it's a very small conversation, a little bump. Hey, how you doing? But it's a lot of, talking to the high school coach. Um, you know, that's a big deal. It's a big deal to have Marcus Freeman and this Notre Dame coaching staff at your high school. So they're inquiring about prospects, showing love just by being there. It's a big deal. And then obviously when the players come to campus, which I think this past weekend's the only recruiting weekend that Notre Dame's going to have. Maybe they have 1 or 2 prospects, sprinkle in throughout the month, but that's kind of the rundown for the month. That big weekend last weekend, and then Freeman's busy on the road all over the country.
Isn't it strange we're talking about these bump into moments, and then we hear allegedly Jim Harbaugh bought a recruit a hamburger and got in trouble, but yet a couple of days later, a kid going to Florida didn't get his $13 million NIL, so he says, I'm not coming there. It just feels like the rules need to be updated a tad bit.
The NCAA is just a well-oiled machine. There's no issues with it, Darren. Yeah, it makes so much sense, all of these things. Yeah,
no question. CJ Carr, of course, in the next recruiting cycle, he's already committed to the Fighting Irish, an elite quarterback. What is his role in recruiting? Because, Mike, on social media, I've seen some graphics of CJ Carr, Marcus Freeman, and then someone they're trying to bring to Notre Dame.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that someone in our next talking point. But he's doing exactly what a quarterback should do. He's publicly recruiting, he's privately recruiting, and not only is he talking the talk, he's walking the walk. He is going to Notre Dame as much as he can on these, like when Ryan Wingo, a top 24 receiver, is in town, he's going to South Bend just to spend a couple hours there to eat dinner with Ryan Wingo. He's been to Notre Dame 10 times in total, about half of those, a little bit more than half, since he committed to the Irish last June. So he's frequently on campus. He's recruiting. He's the perfect quarterback commit recruiter. That's quite a handful of a term, but like he's I don't know, Darren. Like quarterbacks are just kind of trained to not only be good at the position, but to just kind of be the face, to know how to speak to the media, to know how to handle yourself. CJ Carr is one of the best that I've covered in this area. And it makes sense, right? He's Lloyd Carr's grandson. His dad played at Michigan. He's got an All-American a safety on his mom's side of his family, his grandpa. Like he knows football. He knows this position. He was born to play it. CJ Carr just gets it. And he's a pleasure to cover.
Not everybody can be a leader. I don't believe you can be taught to be a leader. Going back a few years, Charlie Weiss tried to teach Jimmy Clausen how to be a leader, and it just wasn't something that was trainable. So it's good to see that CJ Carr kind of has those leadership skills already ingrained in him. All right. Hey,
Yep.
Mike, let's talk about Justin Scott for a moment. I know this is someone Notre Dame fans who follow recruiting closely are waiting to find out where he's going to pick his school. And we at least now know the decision date is coming up.
I do like Notre Dame to land him. Georgia just offered on Tuesday, and he seems to want to see. He's exploring that a little bit. So what does that mean? Does he go visit Georgia before he commits on the 31st? Is he able to, and then or not able to? So he pushes it back so he can visit Georgia. Does he say, I can't get there, I'm just going to come in on the 31st? I don't know. There's a lot of different moving parts here. This is something I'm checking hourly, for our subscribers at Blue and Gold. So as things stand, I like Notre Dame to land him here in less than 2 weeks. But that Georgia offer, it was very much a situation where Scott posts, hey, I'm committing on January 31st. Georgia's like, oh, crap, let's offer this kid and see if we can't make a dent in this late. So I think that it's Notre Dame's to lose. But again, the Bulldogs are in there, the two-time defending national champs. And then you have Michigan and Ohio State, USC, Miami, some of those schools still battling as well.
Interesting. Well, I would have to imagine that for Notre Dame football, defensive line recruiting is crucial in this cycle. There just doesn't appear to be that depth that Notre Dame has had for so many years where they could rotate two guys at every position and really not lose a whole lot. I think going into this year, there's a feeling there might be a little bit of a drop off. So I guess I'm giving my opinion more than, speaking for you, but it just seems like wide receiver position that was huge for the last cycle. Defensive line appears to be my spot where they've got to hit some home runs.
For 2024, Darren? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, and they've got a solid one committed. And Owen Wafel, I don't think he's going to blow anyone away and think, oh, this is the 5-star type guy. But Owen Wafel's a really solid piece for the Irish, someone that they really wanted. They're in pursuit of the Smith twins. They're originally from Kentucky, but now they're playing up in Connecticut. Marcus Freeman was at that school on Wednesday. I believe they leave for both. If they get Scott, now you're looking at a 4-man class already, and then you're probably going to take a Viper as well, the weak side end spot. So Notre Dame is recruiting like a dozen to 16 defensive linemen. Like they have a big defensive line board in general. And I do think they're going to land. Like I think their defensive line class will be one of the strongest units in the cycle for them.